Hey everybody, welcome back to Sounds Like a Drum, Cadence independent media production. If you're just joining us, normally what we do is tuning and tone and hacks and myth busting, all kinds of things like that. Today we're tackling, for the end of our season, sort of a practical thing, which is your first snare drum. Beginner drum, where do we start with this thing? We've had a lot of questions about how to approach what constitutes like a beginner drum or a first snare drum, something where, you know, it's in the budget range, it's affordable, but it's still going to sound good. Do you have to approach it differently? Do you have to think about different things when you're tuning it? That sort of scenario. And we had sort of a lovely thing fall in our laps, which is that one of my students just got her first snare drum and was asking me to tune it up for her, and I said, can we tune it up on the show? And so they passed it off to me. So we're actually doing the literal unboxing of my student Rose's first drum. Thank you, Rose, for letting us borrow your drum. It's going to sound awesome when we're done with it. And so that we're going to kind of go through the process of imagining that we just got this drum, we're going to try and make it sound good, and then we're going to go through some head combination things and kind of see how good we can make it sound. Thanks again to ProMark by D'Addario for being our presenting sponsor. I'm going to do forward Acorn 5As today. Maybe hit it a little bit hard since it's a brand new drum and I want to see what it's going to do. And first things first is we're going to get out of the box and see what kind of state it's in when it comes from the factory, basically, or from the place that you ordered it from. Alright, so just to catch up, this is a Tama Metalworks 4x13. It's 1mm steel shell, everything's matte black, and this is sort of a new series, I believe, of drums from them that are sort of an entry-level but functional, kind of good place to start when you're getting a snare drum, or maybe if you've been playing wood snares and you want to try a metal one. I picked this one for her basically because it was a little bit smaller, so it's easier to carry around when you're little, but I thought that the hardware looked good. I thought that, you know, everything I found online made it seem like it was a good place for them to start, and the price point is pretty great too. It's very, very affordable. Now, the things to think about when you're going after an affordable drum is, first, that you know, you go with a reputable company, maybe read some reviews, things like that. But then once you've chosen one and you've gotten it, looking for the things that are going to need adjustments. First of all, tuning. We're going to tune it up. Secondly, checking out the wires, checking out the heads. Generally, drums in this price range, they skimp a little bit on the heads and they skimp a little bit on the wires. Knowing that those are replaceable things, I think, too, just to kind of keep the price down. So the heads on this drum don't have any kind of branding on them at all other than the name of the drum company, Tama. And they sound about how I was expecting them to sound. I'm the first person to hit this drum. It was wrapped up when I got it. I didn't touch anything for the initial kind of checking it out. And so the first thing we're going to do is tune it a little bit and see what kind of sound we can get out of it that's a little more pleasing to the ear and a little more functional. All right, I've tuned it up a little bit. It's in a little bit of a higher range, and we have the pitches basically evened out around the heads. Oftentimes with these sort of stock low-budget heads, they're put on pretty aggressively, like with a drill or something like that, so they can be a little bit tricky to tune up when you're getting the drum. Like this one, for instance, right out of the box looks pretty stretched out. So that's a little bit of a limitation, but we're still able to get a good sound out of it. I haven't fussed with the wires a little bit yet, but let's play it like this first and see how it sounds. Now, what I'm noticing right now is a couple of things. The first thing is that I'm not feeling a lot of low end out of the drum or much mid-range. It's pretty bright and it's pretty loose sounding. The overtones are kind of all over the place. But then also the wires feel choked, even though they're not that tight, and I'm not getting a lot of kind of breath in the sound when I hit it. And that's coming from two places. One is that these are stock heads on an import drum which are stretched out, so that's going to start us down a road of not having a lot of body in the sound. If you look really closely at the wires, you'll see that rather than them being straight across like this with the ends in parallel, the ends are canted a little bit like this. This is a thing that happens sometimes with straps. Sometimes it's that the wires are screwed up, but most of the time it has to do with the straps. You can actually see on this strap, if you look closely right here, that there's tension on one side of the strap and there isn't tension on the other side of the strap. One side is floppy and one side is tight. Exactly the thing that we don't want to be happening with our wires, because that means that we're having some of them tight and some of them loose, which means too much articulation on one side and the possibility of choking, and then jangly nonsense coming from the other side. So the solution is not to change the wires yet, it's just to change what we're using to mount them. And so we're going to go to strings. This is starting to sound pretty good. Again, everything now is still stock, except we changed out these kind of skinny, not great straps for some nylon string. And now we're getting some movement in the wires and the drum is breathing a little bit more. It's sounding a little bit bigger. One of the things that I think people are concerned a lot about with drums in this price range is versatility, tuning range, different sort of like semantic things that we talked about in a previous video, terminology, fatness, crack, all that kind of thing. And as long as the drum you're getting is structurally sound and has little things like, you know, a level bearing edge and, you know, functional snare mechanisms, hopefully snare beds, some don't have them. That's not necessarily a deal breaker. This one does, which is great. It's okay to spend not that much money on a snare drum, and it's highly likely that you'll be able to get a great sound out of it, provided that some tuning goes into it, some small adjustments like this. Just as a curiosity that I want to try, we're going to put on some Puresound snare wires on here, and maybe not a brand new batter head, but just swap out the batter head for the sort of head that I would normally use, just to see what happens with those materials changed. All right, so this is going to be new wires. These are Puresound Custom Pro Steel 20s, and Custom Pros are a strap mounted wire, so we're back to straps again, but these are much more effective mechanisms for holding them on, and these are some of my favorites. So this is a throatier sound. There's a little more wire action going on. It feels better to play, particularly. So like at low dynamics, there's nice articulation, and it's opening up a lot as we get bigger, which is something I associate with good quality wires. Not expensive wires, but just ones that are structurally sound and that were made well. Now, last thing we're going to do is we're going to put a different batter head on this. And frankly, we don't have a fresh one here, but we're going to use a slightly used one just to show you that even that, if you've got one knocking around, is going to make a big difference with any snare drum that's coming from the factory with a pretty judiciously stretched out factory head. All right, here we go. Now we've got the new wires on there, and we've put a very worn in, but still totally functional Cody G1 on the batter. Let's see what it does. So the difference, while subtle, it's there. And the sound where I'm sitting right now is much more satisfying to play, both from low dynamics all the way to the top. The sort of caustic overtones are gone. And even though this head has seen a lot of use, it is really bringing out the tone of the instrument a lot more, and it's projecting sort of just a wider sound in here, even at a pretty high tension. Could go much higher. This isn't quite as high as the last tuning, or at least it doesn't sound like it to me where I'm sitting. But all in all, for the price range of a drum like this, something as simple as checking out if the wires are okay, maybe changing the batter head is enough to take it into professional sounding territory, particularly for what amounts to maybe more of an auxiliary size drum like this. If you're thinking about getting like a piccolo to put to the left, or maybe you want to get like a 6.5 by 14 to do a floor tom kind of thing, this is a totally viable option. There are, limitations to some of the hardware, maybe the mechanism isn't as great as a different one, things like that. But all in all, the approach is the same. We're looking for a good sound. We're looking for not choking the drum out. We're looking for a sound that the drum maybe is sort of designed to make, or it's in the range of, like, for instance, a 4x13 like this is. So it's fair to say that you maybe can't ask as much of a budget line drum, but that has nothing to do with whether or not it's going to sound good or whether or not it's going to function in the music that you're trying to make. It's more about learning what it will do, what it doesn't like to do, and don't try to force it to do something that it doesn't want to do. On the flip side, plenty of experimentation, even in an entry-level instrument. A lot of fun there. I'm having fun playing it right now. It's just as fun as any other drum that's here because it's got its own personality and it has a thing that it really likes to do. So that about wraps up this episode, and this episode wraps up season 2. This is episode 52, which is crazy. We were just talking about it earlier, and it's unbelievable that we are already here. We have some specific and very important thanks to provide, first and foremost, to ProMark for being our presenting sponsor. We really appreciate it. It's been fantastic to work with. Evans has been providing us with heads, which has been phenomenal for all the experiments that we want to do here, and making sure that when we want to experiment, we can get exactly what we need, including prototypes in some cases, which has been super fun. Thanks so much to Focusrite for helping us out with our interfaces and allowing us to have more inputs, better audio, and higher fidelity in general for you, the listener, and also for us when we're listening back and trying things out here and really getting into the nitty-gritty of the sound. It's really been phenomenal. And last and absolutely not least, thank you so much to everyone who has contributed and become a part of our Patreon. It has really made all of this possible, and it's allowed us to do some really exciting things that you don't know about yet, but you'll find out about real soon. It's just been phenomenal to have that community grow and have that really tangible proof that people love what we're doing and want us to do more with it. At the end of the episodes, you've seen names go by from the Acrolite level and above of the Patreon of people that have contributed and really given us the boost we need to go even further in the future as well as during this season. If you haven't checked out the Patreon, don't be afraid if you've never heard of it, don't know what it is. Please just jump over there and check it out. It's a way for you to help facilitate us doing things here. It's kind of our version of like a PBS pledge drive kind of thing. And basically, this is a largely crowd-funded resource that we're making here, and we don't want to have to charge for content, but contributions allow us to help make that content. And we want to expand into all kinds of things, sticks and cymbals and comparison videos and just all kinds of stuff that we honestly need to finance somehow and find the hours in the day to do it where we don't have to do something else to keep the lights on here and pay the rent. So if you haven't been, follow the link below, jump over there, check it out. Any contribution is welcome and extremely appreciated. Go check it out, and thank you so much. And as usual, thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and go down below and click the notification bell so that you can find out about our new videos. Thanks, of course, to ProMark by Dodaro for being our presenting sponsor, and to everyone else that's helped us out this season. It's really been phenomenal. We've had a great time. Lastly, I remember my first snare drum, and I remember how I could not make it sound good. So if you've got a story about your first snare, or maybe you're about to get your first snare, let us know what goes on in the comments, and I'll look forward to your stories.